I understand that you are having a discussion about wedding planning and stress today versus years ago.
Yes.
Well, that particular topic is interesting to me because July coming of this year will be 27 years of marriage for me. And as it relates to the planning, we took it, when I say we, my husband and I, we took it day by day, month by month. We kind of categorized how we wanted to go about making our payments. We had family members to assist us in networking with friends that were in the business, such as photography or doing the cakes, or someone else recommended a lady that was a seamstress that did the wedding dress. So for me, we capitalized on our costs by, and we did it ourselves pretty much, and we did have some family members to kind of, jump in and take care of certain parts, such as the reception, that sort of thing, versus today. Oh my goodness. I mean, the astronomical fees that are associated with just your wedding package in terms of the photography, the time frame that it requires. I just didn't have to deal with a lot of that, and I think that was intentional. We really tried to not have as much stress. Of course, in my opinion, it's a lot that goes on the bride, in my opinion, because of just the anxiety of it all. Just you're excited, but at the same time, you're wanting everything to be just perfect, Exactly. I mean, the weather, all the way down to the caterer, what type of food will you have? Now, I'm not saying everything was perfect, because it was not.
But that's
because
one of the word perfect.
Deadlines. You did have people that were either coming in from out of town, so you had to really navigate all of those things. So that part of the stress, I think, is what really hangs over the bride, I think. And I'm not going to say the groom doesn't have stress. It's just not as much as the bride. And like I said, for us years ago, I just know with the cost of living, inflation for everything, I mean, all the way down for flowers. Oh boy, flowers, oh my goodness. So if you didn't have a friend or somebody that, could help you, and now people are a little bit more creative, so they're doing things kind of on their own, such as invitations. I do know that. So that is a good thing. I think that is different from back then, as far as it is today, that people are doing their own invitations, kind of a little bit more creative so that they can cut costs. So it just really depends, I think, on, what type of financial maybe background you come from. I don't know. So it just really depends. But if you have not been saving, or don't have a whole lot of family or friends that can kind of help you, it can be mind-boggling at the same time. But I just think that in terms of our costs, I'm almost sure that we did not spend more than $10,000.
And this was what year? How many years ago?
July of 2020 will be 27 years.
I think you said about 15,000.
I'm sure I did not exceed about 10,000. I don't think I went over $10,000.
Because I think 10,000 then might be like 20,000 now, maybe. But still, I like the concept that you said. Like, that's one of the things that people stress out about, when you use the word perfect, trying to have the perfect wedding, and that can be, very stressful, trying to have everything the perfect wedding, and just right. You can't have everything perfect.
And so, I just think my advice would be for the bride is to make sure that she has help with, people that can, I know that, we want to take care of the end result or make sure, but you got to kind of let some of that stuff go and let people that you trust to handle. Of course, they can let you know that this is on time, we're on target. here, and then starting early, so that way you won't end up having to just take the first or the last thing that's available. Quite naturally, people know that at the last minute, people can kind of go up on their prices or feel like, you're at a no-go situation. It's either me or nothing. And so that can be, add additional stress. So that preparation, to me makes all the difference in the world. Just the way in which you go about planning and setting your own personal dates. If you have a wedding a year or two out, you have to put yourself on a timeline and making sure that you're communicating or having someone to help you to navigate. And then with this technology today, that is different because, back then, we were still doing everything paper pencil. Wasn't a whole lot of computers going on in my world.
Well, what was the venue for the wedding and reception? What kind of venue did you choose?
I'm sorry?
The venue for the wedding and the reception, what kind of venue did you choose?
Well, actually, it was my venue. It was at our church. We did use the reception hall at our church, the fellowship hall at our church. So that helped us without having to go and use somebody else's facility. So
was there a cost?
Member of the church, that was a low cost for us.
You said no cost?
Low,
L-O-W.
Low.
Okay.
Very inexpensive cost for us. So we did, of course, we made a donation to the church because we were members. So it's things like that kept our costs down. That's why I said we really navigated through people that, my mom worked with a guy that did, cakes. That was just his specialty, but he did do other jobs, but he really specialized in cakes, so we used him for our cakes. A friend recommended a florist.
Okay.
I think my brother-in-law, he met a lady that was a seamstress up in College Park, and she actually had the wedding dress in her window. And when I saw that dress, I immediately thought, oh, wow, that will look really nice on me. So I went to go and talk to her, and I actually got the window dress.
Wow.
And I still have it to this day. Yeah, so, beautiful.
What about the cost of the food? What did you do for the food?
Same thing. We knew at that time people that catered. My mom again knew somebody that he was in the catering business, and so we were able to have our costs less expensive there. So then family members, we all put it together, and really, when I tell you my pictures, like I said, they're worth 1,000 words. Photography, the same thing. So that worked out for us. So I just think that's what kept our costs really where we wanted it to be, so that we could enjoy a honeymoon. And like I said, we decided that so we would not have to have our families and to incur a lot of the expenses. We pretty much just kind of saved and put ourselves on a budget so that we could take care of, pay as you go, or have the money set aside. This is for the photographer, or this is for the caterer, or this is for, we're going to put this over here in this nest egg over here for the honeymoon. So like I said, that planning in advance is what really, really, really helped out a lot. So therefore, really when we ended our wedding, we did not have, sometimes I hear people say that even 10 years out of the marriage, and I would hope that they would still be together at that point, because that would really be sad to be still paying for a wedding and you're not together.
Yes.
But in our case, we did not have any bills once we came back from our honeymoon, and we were just ready to start focusing on our next step for our lives together.
You've been very helpful and offered some great insights. What's your first name?
Natalie.
Natalie, thank you so much for calling. I see Paul over here jotting notes as you've been talking, so you've been very helpful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and happy briding and grooming and wedding planning and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you all take care. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Keep up
thank you.
That was really helpful.
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, because as the man, I'm sitting here, and we as gentlemen, the men that are marrying you women, we want to make sure you have your day, and we don't want to be accused of being cheap or uncooperative or anything. But you know, I also learned that in this partnership called our relationship going into a marriage, you know, this is definitely going to be a yin and yang approach. You have one who's going to take off 100 miles an hour. You're going to have the others going, hey, let's slow down. Let's make sure, you know, with it. And I see really, I'm finding more and more that I'm in a position of being a project manager. That's the way I'm looking at it. Really, I decided to look at this almost like a business relationship, because now that means I have to pull off creating a memorable experience, but yet keep it under budget, keep it realistic, as Shavette said, and after Carla says, listen, you know, invest more into your marriage than you are into trying to plan a wedding. And if I know that the investments we make is going to be more than just financial, then I can't live saying I'm spending $20,000. I'm still trying to wonder am I with the right person. Because the only return on investment that's going to be really is when you turn around and you ask yourself, well, at least I got out of it before, you know. Because what do they call it, a 3-year itch or a 5-year itch? I'm trying to understand that concept. And more and more I'm looking at it and saying the simpler weddings turn out to be some of the best and had the longevity. Why is the simpler, the easy weddings last and these elaborate theatrical weddings don't?
Because oftentimes, like I said, it's like to show people, impress people, you know, and then probably the foundation may not be there. It's just to impress, you know.
No, I've been in 12 weddings.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm a professional groomsman. But seriously, I think fellow officers over the years, friends, family.
12?
I made a note of some of the ones earlier, and it's like, I've been in 12 weddings.
So what do you take away? Is there anything that you've learned from participating in these 12?
Absolutely.
What have you learned from
The number one I learned is make sure you know who you're getting married to. Because out of that 12, only 3 of them are still together.
What? 3 out of 12?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And we're talking about a span of us that came out of the academy in 96, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, in 2026, that'd be 30 years. So, in all that time, there's only 3 of them that are still married.
25%. Wow.
Only 3 are still married.
Wow.
And then 2 of them was in, you know, same person. I was in all 3 of their weddings. They got married 3 different times to 3 different people. I kid you not.
Wow.
I literally kid you not. And, you know, and
is he married to the last person? Are they still married? The last?
They divorce should be finalized. I kid you not. The divorce should be finalized in another month.
Wow.
Well, believe it or not, that's interesting, those statistics. One of the things that my husband and I did was we actually went to something called Life Skills. Okay. It's actually a course that we took over the course of a year.
Okay.
You go to, in our class, we probably had about 10 women. In his class, he probably had about 8 or 10 men. And you meet once a week for about a year. Okay. And it teaches you about yourself.
What's the name of the beginning, please?
It's just, you can Google Life Skills. Just
Life Skills.
Life Skills
Gotcha.
Courses. But it teaches you about yourself, past pain that you've endured, how to overcome that pain, just getting to know yourself so that you can get to know others. Get to know someone else. And that really, that was an eye opener, and it really was a great experience. So, you know, a lot of times you have to think about, do you really know you? Who are you? Who am I? Because you have to know and love yourself before you can really know and love someone else. Ladies, right now, I have 3 very close people to me. And these are men. The women, you know, I was in all their weddings. Right now, simultaneously, all 3 are going through divorces.
Wow.
From 2 years, the longest was 10 years. All three going through divorces. I am directly, and it's funny. I'm the one who's never been married, but I'm the one who's the show that, you know, when each one want to talk or rolling out. And the crazy thing about it, you know, one, when, you know, they had to separate, been living with me for over a year. And every other day, or at least every other week, it's like a counseling session. And I'm like, and my biggest problem was the depression. Didn't want to seek professional help, but at the same time, you know, I had one rule, man: don't commit suicide in my house.
What do you think out of all three of those men, of the men that you're speaking of? Like, what was there a particular reason that, you know, they wanted the divorce? Was that like similar? Or?
And here's the funny thing about it. Not one of these men wanted a divorce.
It's the women.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not one of these men wanted a divorce. Wow. When I'm in a company of grown men who broke down emotionally and the tears are flowing, and they would do anything to get their marriage back.
Do you have any idea from the women? Like from the women, for the reason?
And here's the funny thing about it. All three married women that were very dominant.
When you say dominant, what do you mean?
And when I say dominant, first of all, they
you wonder where the pants in.
Yeah, and this is what I found with a lot of men. And whether they want to admit it or not, especially men that might have come out of households that mama raised them. These were men looking for women to pick up where mama left off. Oh. They never came into the household of being a man leading a household. Most never actually led a house. You went from one relationship with every woman you dated. You were looking at that woman to set the tone and set the purpose and carry the household.
Were you saying that they grew up in households where the father was absent?
Well, I don't even know. Well, two of them were not. I know that.
Okay.
But the thing is, none of them came in and said, hey, and I'm not talking you a Ike Turner type, intimidate, put your hand, I better know where you at. Just the opposite. You come in, first of all, every relationship should have a purpose. And this is my personal belief. Every relationship should have a purpose. And really, like Shavette said, if you're going for a quick marriage and hook up in a wedding, when did you have time to get to know each other? I don't judge my relationships by how good we are together and how much fun. I judge my relationships that when we have these moments, when we bumping heads, when there's conflict, can we communicate? Can we resolve it? Can we fight fair? Which means I'm not saying things to you to hurt you, or I'm not doing things to hurt you just because I can. And who wants to be with somebody who's always putting you down or belittling or condescending? Exactly. Each of these men were in positions where they were went into marriages where they suffered that. And we're talking.
You mean the women were putting them all down?
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, the smallest woman and especially if she has an acid tongue, well, let me tell you, she can break a mountain of a man down verbally. We make the mistake in society of looking at, oh man, that's a woman, I can't believe you. Well, how many men report when they victims of domestic violence? How many men will honestly admit that they are emotionally or mentally damaged from somebody, from the woman in their life beating them down?
This is all three of these women were emotionally abused. All three of the men were emotionally abused.
I'm going to say that they weren't strong in character, or they come in as a man and leading the household. And all three had this. And one of the things I identified in all of them, you weren't looking for a wife. You were like looking for a mom.
Mother. Okay. Well,
you were in relationships looking for love, and you didn't even know how to love yourself.
Okay.
Well, I can add this when we're talking about dominant women. One of the things about dominant women that is very difficult to do so oftentimes is to learn how to be submissive, to learn how to submit to your mate and your head of the household. When you have women who are accustomed to being head of the household, even in my situation, it was, and it's at times it still is a challenge for me to allow as my dad used to say, allow a man to be a man.
Absolutely.
And when I was younger, I didn't understand what my dad meant by that. But mainly what he was meaning was you allow him to be the head, and you're under his leadership and allowing him to make decisions. Now, you can make decisions together, but ultimately he's the head of the household and the decision maker. And then when you don't allow that to happen, now the children may not respect him as a man because of your lack of being able to allow him to lead the family.
And it's funny, as a man, not only do I hear that, but I also know that my brothers who are going to come into a relationship, if you want to be respected as the head of the household, as that man, first of all, accept the responsibility. That's one. Two, when you come into this marriage, relationship, household, whatever you want to call it, act like you, first of all, your priority is everybody, not just whoever you marrying. If she has kids, those kids are yours. It's a package deal. If you have kids and they live with you or whatever, it's a package deal. The minute you start isolating any component, you just fail, because now you're going to constantly have conflict. And that's the three that I'm definitely, and that's definitely affecting me. Here it is at a point in my life where I'm saying, well, you know what? It may not be a bad thing to finally go in house. I've never lived or been married before.
So with your friendships with these men, has that affected your thoughts or desires about marriage?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Absolutely. But not in a way that's deterring me.
Okay.
Actually, it's like a learning.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at what they did. And the first thing I had to identify, what do they all have in common? Okay. And the number one thing I realized, they never went into these marriages with the responsibility, wanting to, or taking on the responsibility of being head of household. And for all our listeners out there, understand, when Shavette stays submissive, I don't think she mean like, you know, you groveling and anything you want, he can say and do whatever. I think she means it's like, hey, listen, you set the direction, we'll follow. The purpose of this marriage is for all of us to benefit mutually and have a good life together, the quality of life. You realize how many men can't take on that responsibility? I'm with my brothers every day, and I see him yelling, oh man, I'm the man. You can't even do your job well. I can imagine what you like inside of a household. I've learned from mistakes of others that I haven't had the privilege of being in a marriage as of yet. But I'm looking at three where I was in the weddings, and I'm like, wow, all three. The divorce has already been finalized, or the process being finalized. And I'm like, wow. But I identified the common denominator in each of these. None of them took on the responsibility. None of them even knew their own account balance or other. Let me tell you how crazy it is. It was so lackadaisy. And you know what I keep hearing them all? Well, I didn't see the point. Oh, well, she handled everything. Oh, that's her job. What's her job? Nowadays, it's everybody's job in a relationship. Your 30s, 40s, 50s back in the Mayberry thinking whatever is done. But none of them took responsibility for the household. You acted impotently even though you're married. Oh, my favorite, well, her job was to take care of this. You don't even know what your policies are. You don't even know how this is. You don't even know how anything get paid. Oh no, I give it to her and she take care of it. What did you do? Again. What did you do? And I cannot blame a woman who got tired of taking care of a man and said, and some of them, there were no kids. So it's not like you had kids raising together, son. But at what point, bro, did you running a household is not easy. At what point do you stop and say, let me take care of this, or let me handle this, or jointly work these bills out? And something simple as doing laundry, or that's her job. What did you do? If she wasn't there, then how did it get done? laundry you still got to have clean clothes and so forth. If it's her job and she wasn't there, how did it get done?
But you're right, because growing up, though, we knew that our father was the head of the household. That's something, that we knew.
First of all, I'm in a household in terms of job titles is gender free, because I've been taking care of running my own house so long. It's that. But I realize there's a lot of men out there who never, ever were in positions or allowed themselves or wanted the responsibility of running a household. I can understand when some women say, I go out and work all day, then I got to come home and work all day. Can you at least make an effort or try, be consistent, work with me?
This again, when you really get to know your mate and your partner,
yes,
that makes a big difference before you say I do. And I was always that person of, I got to do it myself. I got to do it. I got to work, and then I got to come home, and then I got to cook, and then I got to clean, because they're not going to clean the way I clean. And I want to do it all. But when you have a partner that is really serious about helping you, it really makes a big difference what you do together.
Absolutely.
Whether I do laundry or he does laundry. And
until the kids old enough to do their own laundry.
Yeah, right. In an area where my husband is awesome is where if I'm working, when I come home, he doesn't want me to come home tired and then get more tired.
Absolutely.
By now coming home and cooking a full meal. He's like, no, I'll come home, I'll do it. So we kind of have that working relationship.
Keyword.
So if he's out working, I'm home, I'm cooking, I'm working, I get home, and it's just so refreshing to come home to a nice meal. But again, between all the household chores and the kids and who's going to do what, and you deviate assignments to everybody, it's all about working together. It's all about working together. Who's willing to do what, and how can we help each other out?
And it's funny you should say that, because I realized in each of these uncouplings, there was no working together. There was no communication. That's the thing that blows me the most. I keep hearing, well, I didn't know. Well, we didn't talk. Well, we never cut. Certain basic things you think people would talk about as you dating and you get to know, and especially when you decide you're going to get married. Your life insurance policies, your health, what I'm saying. All these little things you go together. I'm amazed how none of them knew any of this stuff. Wow. Even for their own personal. Well, she always took care of that. Wow. What did you do?
Wow. What did they do?
What did you do? I'm learning every day that this whole concept of even a marriage is stressful. You know what I mean? Because there are going to be days where you just don't like each other. Can you still love somebody and not like them? Every day. I love my kids. Don't like them all the time. But I see the disconnect relationship-wise long before I walk down our aisle. But I know what I don't want. And one of the things I do talk to my soon-to-be is like, first of all, the communication is key.
It is. That's what
at any point you shut down to me and hit me with, well, if you don't know, then you figure it out. I'm not figuring out nothing. I don't read minds.
Exactly.
You do that to me, I assure you at that point, that's not going to be a good ending on that. I will figure it out from my point of view. And my point of view, that's my opinion, that's a thought, that's what I'm going to roll. Don't come back later and say, well, you should have known. I don't should have known anything.
I like the point you made, like knowing yourself first.
Exactly.
Knowing yourself. What was the name of that course again?
Just life skills.
Life skills.
Life skills. I'm going to look this up because I do think at this point
we did it for about a year.
About a year.
But we each is separate classes, and it just really teaches you a lot about you and things that and actually both of us were married before, so that's another reason why we didn't want to rush into a second marriage. And we took so long just to get to know ourselves and know each other and figure out, okay, what it is that, because initially I blamed my ex-husband for the reason of our divorce, which the main reason was him, but there were things I could have done differently to be a better wife,
gotcha,
to be a better mother. So that the class is really just teaches you how to do that, to look at you and inside and say, okay, maybe he did this because I did this.
Absolutely.
Or, I could have done that differently. And you realize mistakes that you made so that you can improve on yourself and then get to know yourself and then in turn get to know someone else.
I got one for you, Doc. One of the things that I'm discovering is when you're dating someone and they already have unresolved issues, anger from previous relationships, they have walls up because they've been hurt. In dating this person, you identify this. And you may have discussions, conversations, sometimes falling out, even if you resolve them. And I understand what you said about the premarital counseling and life skills and so forth. But what if you with somebody who feel they don't need that?
They don't need what?
They refuse. I don't need that. I'm all right, blah, 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 blah. Or every time you have a disagreement, they can be extremely hostile to deal with. I mean, not physically hostile, but then eventually they come down and say, I'm sorry, I just get that way sometimes. No, if you get that way at any time, you need help.
Yeah, and it's helping them to realize that it's not healthy for the relationship.
Yeah, it's not.
Let's change. Let's work on changing that behavior. It may not happen overnight, and it won't happen overnight. But it'll just be, okay, honey, I don't like when you do this. Try doing it this way, or try, if you get angry, take 10 seconds to just deep breathe, or before you speak to say something that may be hurtful to me.
Absolutely.
Just figure
and
it
what
out.
do either you would suggest to the partner who really wants the marriage to work, but they already identified signs in their significant others, whether they can be abusive verbally, mentally, or physically, or financially. Financial abuse is a major in a lot of relationships as well that people don't identify. You have those who will go into it thinking they're going to change.
Well,
I can make them change. Or if they around me, or all we need to do is be together and everything will be all right. At what point, going back to Shavette and her, you get realistic with yourself versus the fantasy of now you being married for the purpose of having some kind of status?
Well, I think if there's emotional and physical abuse, that's the time to get out. That's what I realized for myself personally. I mean, the emotional abuse was there first, and then the physical abuse. Then I realized, for my own well-being, it was time to leave.
It's an amazing concept. Because, ladies, it amazes me at this day and age that there are more single people coupled up in the United States, according to the census, than married people in households.
The question's posed, what about prenups? What are your thoughts on prenups?
Yeah, do tell.
I don't know why everybody's looking at me, but
you the newest one. I'm learning from you.
I'm divorced.
Yeah, I don't know. Me personally, I don't know. I don't really believe in prenups.
I agree.
I mean, you're two people coming together, and you want it to work, for better, for worse. And if you're one person is financially successful and the other person is not as successful financially, it's almost like you're saying, well, I'm getting married, but just in case it doesn't work, you're not going to get this or that. You know what I mean? If you're going into a marriage for it to work, you know what I mean?
And that leads us back to financial abuse.
Not with that hesitation of, well, if it doesn't, then I'm securing my fortune.
Right, because to me, it seems like that takes away from the commitment.
Right.
But not as
it definitely takes away.
And then you have the one who makes more money, and now I'm the dominant one because I'm the primary breadwinner. So I control everything in the household. Well, I agree with you. Now, don't get me wrong. Ain't nobody want to deal with no broke spouse. I'm not trying to take care of an adult financially because, whatever reason, they got other skills and qualities I like. But I do think financially, it should be, hey, let's put it all on the table. We're working together. What if I have a prenup that already tell me that I may have to protect myself from you?
One foot in, one foot out.
Yeah, that's an escape route.
Exactly.
when this falls apart, I want to make sure you don't get nothing of mine.
Exactly.
I don't. That's not going to be me. First of all, when we hook up, hey, set the tone early for the purpose of this relationship. You don't want to grow old by yourself, and I don't want to grow old by myself. And at that point in our life, forget about the maturity part. Look at the quality of life. Are we going to be good together? Not if we could be good together. Are we going to be good together?
And are we committed to the commitment?
And that means when you sick, I take care of you. When you sick, I take care of you. When I'm sick, you take care of me. At the end of the day, I know my thought process. People are, that doesn't make sense. You fantasizing. But why does it have to be a fantasy? This is very real. Oh man, you never man, a woman, you put so much trust in a person, it's not about putting trust. It's about just being good to somebody. I expect you to be good to me. And this whole dating, courting period, as you say, that's when you find out if somebody's really going to be good to you and for you. We planning a wedding, you doing all of this. If they are going crazy spending your money, but not contributing to the financial aspect, but they telling you what they want, that's a good sign. You are nothing more than a financial crutch.
Well, that's something else that has to be discussed. I have this much, you have this much, so that totals this. And if one side is more heavy, then hey, okay, can you contribute more? Oh, yeah. Okay, you don't because of what your salary is. Okay, so you just, all of this again is communication. You said it earlier, Paul. Communication is key.
It's definitely
key in planning a wedding.
And how you said earlier during the break, you're talking about like compromising or giving.
You have to be able to compromise. A marriage, by far, is all about compromise and trying to come to a happy medium. Because it's not like you're going to be happy 100% of the time. She's not going to be happy 100% of the time. But you have to learn to come to a happy medium so that you guys can work through so many different things that's going to occur and happen, throughout your marriage.
I look at people every day, couples. One of the things I enjoy is people watching, especially in restaurants. You ever see couples at a table and there's no talking, but everybody's on their own phone?
Yes.
And the whole time there's no cooperation except, hey, what do you want? They look at the menus briefly, have an exchange, talk to, and they go back to their phones. I'm like, wow, if it's like that at a restaurant, I wonder what it's like in house. You ever see where people together at an event and they just look unhappy together?
Yes.
And it's
like the president and his wife. Oops.
And I think another thing that really amazes me is when you watch someone when they take photos. Or you look at photos and like they're kind of like leaning away from each other instead of leaning forward.
With Michelle and Barack, that was a whole that was true love. You can definitely tell they were in love.
True love?
Yes.
Now what exactly is true love, ladies?
Well, I mean like a real relationship, a real true relationship compared with, I'm saying, the current president and his wife. You can tell that there's
a difference.
Right. Yes.
And and the system always said, well, that kind of love black people can't achieve.
What?
Because we're not capable.
Okay, that's BS.
Well, but here's the funny thing about it. And when you sit there and say that BS, it's funny how even race come into it. When you start looking at interracial relations now, and you start looking at people crossing over racial lines and breaking out the tradition. We haven't even touched on those who have broken stereotypes and family tradition or been disowned because they married someone outside their race. That alone have to be a major stigma for some people that prevent them from being happy. Whether religious, financial, racial, don't go outside of your comfort zone. What's the comfort zone at this point now in terms of who you decide to love?
Well, look at Megan and Harry.
Now that's a hell of a sacrifice there.
For who?
Actually, think about it. He said, listen, and mind you, Harry married a woman who's already married, who's been married before. Think about in a British family, and you start looking at those throughout the history of it. and you say you broke the norm right there, because chastity is still an old world type expectations, almost traditional. Most marriages, especially the ones when we start looking at the religious content, people still want to make sure, is she pure? Is she a virgin?
You said Tim Tebow just got married, and he's been a virgin supposedly.
And you know what, Tim, I give you all the power in the world. And I was a virgin up until the 2nd grade. Hey, come on, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. But let's look at reality of it. And I do admire those who are able to celibacy, even against the peer pressure and so forth. But does come to a point we ask ourselves, what do we value more? Getting married, or just the fun of a wedding?
It should both be equal. I mean, getting married and the fun of it. I mean, they should both be equal.
Right, because oftentimes, young girls are socialized in this culture, like they have the wedding, the big wedding. It's not so much the marriage, but the wedding. That's what, young girls are socialized to want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to put all my invest everything in planning a wedding, but yet I end up with a failed marriage.
You gotta take what's important to you, make your own priorities, stick to a budget. I mean, so those are things.
Right, and these are all things that you all would have to communicate on. You have to sit and talk about it. Look at, these are the 10 different options for us getting married for our 200 guests or 100 guests. And let's kind of go through them and, see which one works best for our budget.
And you would strongly recommend that for our WCEG listeners out there, that they really communicate well with their significant other. They plan together. They agree. Right. You know what I'm saying? Most important is to agree. And at the end of the day, it's your day.
Exactly.
It's your day.
Exactly.
Peer pressure can be amazing, especially family related or whatever. So, ladies, thank you very much.
And I'll say, as we wrap up, getting engaged and planning a wedding is just really a time to celebrate your love, your commitment to one another. And, it's such a big investment of not just money, but time. Absolutely. And it takes a lot of energy. And what I would say to listeners out there, if you want additional ways where you can save on your wedding, we can give you additional information on that. It was a tremendous blessing for a membership that I happen to have, a travel membership. It's a total blessing for my wedding in many, many ways. Destination Wedding Certified, where you can get additional discounts and maybe even have a certain portion of your wedding even tax deductible, which would be great. I'll give you a phone number you can call to get additional information, even how you can, about a gift that pays you, when your guests travel to your wedding, and give them a free membership of a lifetime. That's absolutely free. So that's number is 786-766-9127, and I'll repeat that. That's 786-766-9127.
Now, is this a number that's for a person or is this a phone number that goes to a company where they have a million different operators at the switchboard?
No, it's a company.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll answer, and then we can give them additional information. They just state they're getting married, and they just want additional information on how they can.
What's the name of the company?
Discounts on their wedding.
Okay. The company's formal name.
Oh, you can put your travel. You can just put your travel.
Gotcha.
Okay, this has been a wonderful discussion. It's brought out so many aspects, and we've learned so much about communicating, compromising, and making sure it's for you, not what everybody else wants.
Exactly.
And then, from what our friend said earlier, make sure that you are spending time on planning the marriage and not just the wedding.
Gotcha.
Thank you, listeners, for listening. You've been listening to the WCEG Network, WCEGTalkRadio.com, part of the worldwide community empowerment status. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to interacting with you again.
Have a good night.
Yes.